Yeah, I guess I'm gonna get straight into it. Maybe I first want to think a little bit about what we're going to need to do to get this to happen. First of all, actually, let me kind of sketch what this is going to look like. So I'm going for basically a Guitar Hero clone. That's kind of how I picture this. So having our screen like this and some kind of tracks kind of going down the screen. Maybe we can be fancy and make these like 3D with little nodes on here. And then a kind of line, the idea being that these things will kind of move down the lines. And then when they hit this point, you want to tap the corresponding key. And then you have a little score up here that just increases based on how close you are to these things. So, you know, maybe if you're right on, normally the way this works is you get like perfect, great, good, like something like that. So there'll be a little bit of tolerance, right? Like if you're right on within a certain range, then we'll give you lots of points. If you're a little bit closer, we'll give you some fewer points. And if you miss it entirely, then maybe, I don't know what normally happens. If you miss too many, like your score gets too low and then you lose. So maybe we'll do something like that as well. I don't know. There are a few parts of this. I'm going to use processing first of all. So if you're not familiar, it's this Java-based framework for doing games and interactive graphical stuff, which I use for most of these streams. Like whenever I can, I use processing pretty much. Yeah, I believe it or not, I've never really done much or anything with audio in processing, so okay, this is not promising. I need to figure out how to do certain things. So I think the basic building blocks we're going to need are, you know, load audio, obviously play the audio. Yeah, let's call that one thing because it's pretty much the same. We're also going to need to have an accurate picture of exactly where in the track, in the like timeline of the track we are, if that makes sense, because the visuals and the gameplay are going to need to be synced as exactly as we can manage to the audio track that's playing. And different systems or different frameworks make that easier or harder. Some of them don't give you a really accurate way to track the timing of the audio, like as the frame rate maybe isn't 100% perfect the whole time, it can kind of drift out of sync. So I'm hoping we can play the audio and then we can like get an exact audio playback position, and then we can kind of drive all of the animation and other stuff each frame based on the exact position of the audio. Otherwise we're just gonna have to fudge it and hope that it doesn't go out of sync. Next, I think we'll probably need to have a way of specifying the notes. So you know there's things like MIDI which we could use, but rather than getting into parsing MIDI, I'll probably look to create a simpler timeline of some kind which just records, yeah, if we have 3 or 4 different tracks like this, which records the timing, either the timings of the notes, or maybe we'll do it in a more musical structure where it will break down into like bars with like beats like this. You know, we'll do it in like 8ths or 16ths or 32ths or 64ths or something like that. That's about the extent of my musical knowledge. I know things tend to break down like that. I'll make sure to pick something that's in 4/4 timing so this all still works. If there are any audio experts watching, then please do correct me if I go totally down the wrong track with any of this stuff. So we're going to need to specify this, and I've got, I think, a pretty cool idea for how we might do that in an interesting and practical, if not somewhat unusual way. Then we're going to need some kind of, I guess, UI to match the notes. Then we're going to need some way to have like user input, like detecting like hit timing, we'll call it. Then probably some scoring, and then it'd be nice to have some like more juice, right? Like the little things like exploding when you hit them, or you know, the little word perfect like floating above them or something like that to kind of juice this up a little bit. Yeah, so I immediately checked on the processing reference for audio and found nothing, so this worries me greatly, I should say, that it doesn't have audio support built in. So let me make a processing thing and we'll see. Maybe there's just a plugin I need to install or something. Okay, open this up. Oh, another thing we need to do, which I haven't done before, is put my desktop audio through so you can actually all hear it on stream. Right now it's just my mic and like this this ambient track I have going. So you know what, I'm actually going to kill the ambience track because, you know, this is a music game stream. Let me just open this up in Audacity. I also don't have like a DAW or anything really nice in here, so I'm going to have to manually figure out like the BPM and stuff like that of this track. So, you know, you know, we can make that happen. We can do that. So hopefully you can hear this. Yeah, so if that wasn't coming through or if the levels were like totally out with my voice, I should probably speak over it so you can check how that sounds, then please let me know. Hey PhD, great to see you. Sorry that it's a late time again. I know I did promise that we'd do a poll or something to maybe do these a bit earlier, but that will come later. I just haven't had time to get around to that, but I'm really glad you're able to pop in. I know it's some crazy time in the morning. I'm a night owl as well, so I'm on the same wavelength, but no, really do appreciate it. Okay, Andrew, awesome. Great that you're here actually. Andrew is our sound design, sound effects guy on Steamhound, so will hopefully be able to help me out with some of this stuff here. Okay, let's try and get this loaded in. So let me figure out how to play audio. So processing does in fact have a plugin system. I think it's through here. Sound. Okay. Interesting. Now what the heck do I do with that? Okay, maybe there's a separate reference page for this. Libraries. Sound. Okay. There's something there. Okay, it's supported at least. So how do I play and load some audio files? Processing sound GitHub. Hopefully there's some hello world example. Sound file class. No support for decoding WAV files that are compressed. MP3 decoding is extremely slow, but that does suggest that they support MP3 encoding, so that's probably okay. Let's just check an example. I think I've got these in OGG format. Time for FFT. I'm not going to auto-detect. I'm not doing any Fourier transforms. I'm not going to auto-detect these beats. What I'm planning to do is just, I'm hoping this is a consistent BPM. I'm just going to start the track at a certain time and count how much is passed and trust that it's a correct BPM. Otherwise, we'll maybe get a track that is like that. But I think it's pretty... I think this will work, right? At least like a section of this song will work. Yeah, this may be tricky. I've never used the sound library, but how do I just play sound file? I should ask the composer. Java version for this. Yeah, so I'm using I'm not sure am I missing some? Oh, as opposed to P5 you mean? Yeah, I'm going to use Java processing. Yep. Sample manipulation, interesting. Simple playback. So it looks like they support some simple playback. So let's see what it looks like. Sound file, create a new sound file. Play the file in a loop. Okay, it looks like they support a fair amount of stuff, even playback rate. So I'm hoping I can get the like timestamp of the current position. Okay, so I'm gonna put this over here so I can see it, and then this over here. Okay. Let's call it the music track. First thing I want to do is just get this loaded in and playing. So some of these things you need to pass in this, which kind of refers to our whole program or sketch itself. There's probably some context or internal stuff it needs to mess around with there. So let's just see if it'll just load an OGG file straight up. So actually these need to be in a data folder. So like this. Play. Is it that simple? Let's find out. Oop. Stop. Okay, something. Okay, it doesn't like OGG, so let me just try and export this in a different format. So what I've got here is actually this is taken from an in-game audio track from Steamhounds, where the looping section is cut out separately from the intro, but actually I want both of these together. I want to kind of keep the intro. So let me throw this in here, and then what's the easiest way to do this? Get rid of that track. Hopefully this is stitched together somewhat cleanly. Cool, sounds fine. So if I export this as, oh, you're now looking at the Steamhounds internal audio files. Andrew will be familiar with these. As I navigate through my convoluted folder structure to find where we are. That's a wave. Let's do MP3. I might be better off just doing a WAV file. I know like there's some might have issues with encoders and formats and stuff like that, but if we can keep the file size smaller with an MP3. So I'm hoping basically that if I just specify in some config the length of this intro, just over 1 second here, and then the BPM, I'll be able to sync everything up just by specifying where the notes land in terms of, you know, the beats throughout the bar and stuff like that. That was weird. What happened there? Anyway, let's see if this gets us anywhere. I can't hear anything. Let me check my mixer here. Okay, that's not ideal. Would it support custom sounds? So I'm hoping that basically you'll be able to have like an MP3 file and then a kind of text file or like a JSON file or something with, which just specifies like the length of the intro, the BPM, and where all the notes are in some format, which I will cover as a later part of my checklist here. And then you'll be able to kind of plug in your own files, but you obviously have to do the work of like pinpointing all the notes and stuff. Because, you know, in a Guitar Hero game, the notes you press aren't it's not every note in the song, right? It's like some simplified version of it, which has been like manually curated as far as I can tell. Okay, I couldn't hear that. Let me try just making a wave file with a small section to see if this is better uncompressed. Hey Gothic, how's it going? Nice to see you back here again. Okay, let's see if this gets it. So it didn't throw an error, but it just didn't, I couldn't hear anything. And still not. So I noticed the example actually used loop instead of play, so maybe that's what we need. Maybe it needs a draw loop to like, or it's not like pumping the audio through if there's no draw loop. Okay, that must have been it. Now, like that's the kind of thing, like I guess that's experience, right? Like it's not that intuitive, but probably what processing does, if there's no draw function, it runs the program in a different mode where there's no like ongoing processing going on, and probably this library relies on that draw loop existing in order to like do its update of audio stuff. Okay, yeah, you're right, it might be fun to do that. We actually had another on our little survey for projects to do. At one point we had audio processing SFX was actually an option here, where I was planning to do some Fourier transforms and filters and stuff like that, but well, it didn't win. People didn't seem interested in it, so we're just going to try and get this done. Bpm detection would be kind of interesting though. So, okay, let's see if this now works. Yeah, right. I mean, it depends on the kind of music. I guess you're basically looking for like zero crossing points with certain ranges before and after or something, right? Yeah, I've done very limited like audio processing, but nothing like that really. Nothing that requires like kind of like judgment or tuning. And I cannot hear this. Okay, yeah, so you'd have to look at certain frequencies. That makes sense. Okay, that's extremely annoying that it does not work with the MP3 format. So I'm just going to export this whole thing as a wave, which is probably going to be like 100 megs or something. It's not the end of the world. So let's get rid of these failed versions. Oh, that's weird. Okay. Because that was a temporary file. Oh, yeah. If the yeah, I tried OGG first and it threw an error, like it didn't even support that encoding. MP3, it just silently failed, and then Wave, it actually seems to be working. So I'm just going to go for this. Okay, so we have part 1, load and play the audio, complete. Now let's try and get some information back from this. So interesting. Let's see. Actually look at the documentation over here for this. Or in fact, I may just look at the code for this because it doesn't look like there's exhaustive documentation anywhere. So I'm maybe better off just looking directly at the code. So I guess it's sound file. Yeah, maybe there's a plugin or maybe it's some other dependency I don't have. But in the interest of keeping it simple. Oh, okay, there you go. Well, I've never used this, AIFF. What can you tell me about this? Is this a reasonable format? Shall I try? Is it like a WAV file? It says signed 16-bit, which is very similar to how a WAV file works, I think. Optional params. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe not. I could see how if it tries to. Okay, yeah, I feel like this isn't that robust, so I'm just going to go with one of the formats it seems to promote. Okay, yeah, so AOIFF is basically just a WAV file. So WAV it is. Okay. Okay, let's go through here. What I'm looking for is something which will give me the current playback position. Number of frames in total. I can jump to a time, that's quite nice. In seconds. Is playing, okay. Amp pan rate stop. That's not great, but this is probably based on another class, so jump is going to affect this, right? So probably this one. Set start frame. So we can get the number of frames. We can queue it to a certain place. I feel like this must be in here. There must be a get current frame or something. Get current time would even be nicer. It's kind of internal stuff. Loop. Nice commented out functions here. Resize sample rate. Stop. Interesting. I don't know if you can all read this. Position, okay. Boom. Position in seconds. There we go. So hopefully that means that it's equal to music dot position. And then let's just draw the text. Up in the corner somewhere. Oh, actually, let me make this a little bigger. Draw background. Okay. This may not be super visible. Get off. But there we go. So it seems like we have reasonably accurate time tracking. Okay, this is actually super loud in my headphones. Let me try and fix this. Cool. Okay. I think this is mostly what we need. So now we need a way of specifying some information about the track. I was thinking a cool way to do this might be rather than, okay, so there's a few ways, right? I could have a text file and I could just have something which is like, maybe the first line is like the length of the intro, which is like, I don't know, 1.01 seconds or something like this. The next line could be either the BPM or like the seconds per bar or, you know, something like that. So let's say it's like 90 BPM. And then I could do, there are many different ways then that I could encode where the notes that the game is interested in lie. Like I could do something like, you could split the bar, right, into a certain number of things. So what am I doing? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 16. I can split into 16ths or like 30 seconds like that, and then just have something like this, right? For like a steady kind of beat. So then, you know, I could alternate that with some other thing. So I'm kind of imagining if we got 3 or 4 different keys or drums or whatever it is, if this is drum hero or guitar hero, not quite decided yet, we could just indicate, okay, there's a hit from A on like this thing. If both of them hit at once, we could do something like this, and this 0, O. It's kind of unnecessary, but it's just so I don't have a load of like random commas like this. It's just to kind of visually give us something so I can kind of look at this and align it to how you'd imagine like a, if you ever use music software, you get like a piano roll or something where you'd have like the bars and then you'd have different tracks for different like kind of notes. So you'd sort of have, you know, there's a note here and then here and then here or however it is. I think this could work. I was thinking of another way of doing this, which I'm now second guessing myself, which is something I've done before is actually to encode this in an image. So I would literally have like a, you know, like a 64 by 4 pixel image here. And then I could kind of actually go through this and like paint in individual pixels and then have the program load up this image, read in the pixels to determine the note positions. The nice thing here is it gives me really nice, like, you know, I could put a grid on this in my image editing program. I could copy and paste like sections around. I could even have layers, which I just use when I'm putting the track together to like annotate and mark down different sections of the track. I've done this before for like a bullet hell kind of game or like a scrolling shooter type game. It's quite a nice way to specify like enemy patterns because you're using all the editing functionality built into your image editor to make it kind of convenient. But actually now looking at this, I think this honestly might be fine. Right, if this is like a bar, then, you know, I can repeat these easily enough. If we let ourselves have like a system of comments, then I can have sections of the song. I feel like this is reasonable. I feel like this is an acceptable way to kind of lay out all these notes, I should say. So let's think about kind of encoding this. I'm going to call it track data. And what do we need to know? We need a intro length. Everything's going to be in seconds, units wise. We need a, let's say BPM. We can derive other stuff if BPM is not the most useful unit for us, like seconds per bar or something might make more sense. And then thinking how I encode the notes. Like, do I have a like a hit which has a probably not, right? I mean, there's no reason that BPM has to be an even number. I think a lot of producers do use even numbers just out of habit, but I don't, yeah, I think it could easily be anything really. So there is this is like the beat within the bar. So then I could have so a bar being a list of hits, ideally like sorted. So a hit might be, you know, if it's the start of the bar, it would be beat 0, and then it might be note. you know, like 1, 2, 3, or 4 for the different kind of tracks. That's probably enough. If we want to get into fancy things like held notes and stuff, then we could maybe have like a type here, or like a duration. Okay, yeah, that's kind of a nice way to do it. I'm just going to make all this stuff public. I suppose I don't need to since it's all in the same package. Okay. Okay. I think that's pretty good. And let's have a way to kind of load this from a file, shall we? Forget which version of Java this is built on top of, so there are actually many ways to load a file. This is kind of what I want to do, so yeah, right, like different versions have provided different ways to do this. Yeah, so this would be convenient if it's included here. Doesn't seem to be complaining. So that's all it is. Everlasting debate, is file name 2 words or 1? Should the N be capitalized in file name? I feel like it should not. Okay. Does not like that. I'm gonna have to use some buffered reader thing. It's camel case, right? But it's like, I'm down with camel case 100%, but it depends on whether file name is one word even within camel case, right? Yeah, like it depends on the Java version, right? So this probably will work. Just need to make sure I include the relevant things here. I know that basically newer Java versions have introduced shorter and shorter ways to like load in a file. So in fact, I think this will work for us. This is going to throw an exception. I'm just going to bail. Yeah, Java 11 plus. I'm pretty sure this will. I'm pretty sure these ones will handle all of that for you, and they'll just open the file and create read it into a buffer and all of this stuff. I hope so anyway. I think that's the point of these newer NIO files things, that they just give you everything. Okay, does this throw another kind of exception? Oh, it's a stream. That's weird. I didn't really want that. Okay, this is okay. So many ways to do this, like I said. Right, like this read all bytes definitely handles opening and closing stuff for you. So then I can say, I'm going to split this. Yeah, like this is the kind of thing, you know, you tend to do it once or twice in a project, and I'll just pull out the snippet to do it. It's not worth remembering this thing, and by the time you're on a new project, it's a new Java version and there's a new way to do it. So let me just try. Let's just print this stuff out. And let's actually create, I guess, a file with some of this stuff in. So when exactly does the first beat drop here? I will say 1.0, like here. Exactly. That's that. I'm just going to put in a random BPM now so we can kind of test. And then I'm going to say, let's just do something very regular. Two, three, four. I don't know how precise this is going to need to be. This should be 16ths, I guess. Okay, audio person. How to capture some of these hits? Like what? I'm hoping these are relatively quantized. I'm not going to get every little tap of the drum. I'm just trying to figure out what's a reasonable like resolution here. Can I get away with 16ths, 32ths? I can't tell just by listening to it what this is. Like these little guitar plucks, if I wanted to capture those. Okay, let's just try it on, I guess, 32. I don't know. Okay, I'll try it this way, and we will figure something out. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what I'm just trying to do here is put in some pattern that I'll be able to recognize that it gets loaded and then ultimately displayed in a reasonable way. So there's our track info. So that's every line. So actually first let's make sure that we can print out the content of this file. But I called it track info instead of track data, didn't I? Whatever. Oop. Interesting. What's going on here? get a stack trace. You know, I've got some Dropbox thing open which is messing with stuff. The issue is no such file. Okay. Do I need like a full path? Should it be like that? Should it be no such file? Should it? Do I need to specify data? Does it need to be an absolute? Oh, damn it. Info.text is indeed what it's called. So we're doing this without the ambient layer on. Maybe I'll put that back. I'm very used to having it in my headphones. The file is there. I copy it out here. Very weird. I'm gonna have to do a full path. Not ideal. How am I building the audio and graphics? So I'm using something called processing, which basically allows you to do this super easily. So it's as simple as define this setup function where you use this size function. So if I strip out all the music stuff, you know, we're basically creating a window here and then we're drawing a black background and drawing some text into it. So it basically lets you get up and running with graphics like super easily. And in fact, I could just write something like this. If I just wanted some text, I could draw rectangles and all sorts of other stuff. It's really nice for small projects. Not great for big things, just because of keeping your code organized as it grows is not ideal. Okay, we got it. I wanted an absolute path for some reason. Yeah, I would say it's pretty on the similar level to Pygame. In fact, it's even maybe slightly simpler. I mean, it comes with its own little IDE. Technically, this is Java, but you don't even need to write a proper Java project because it kind of does some weird translation in the background for you. Okay, so we're getting the data out of the file, no problem. So let us say, what's it? So in length is equal to, let's pass a float, and it's going to be like the first line as a float, then the BPM is going to be the next line. See if we get any errors there. Okay, seems okay, and then I can just do timing going to be tricky? Yeah, maybe so. this while... This is way nicer. Okay. I'm not a fan of for loops that don't use all the parts of the for loop, because it just kind of just feels like a bastardization to me. Okay. Let's just print out each other line here. Yeah, basically. I mean, it's basically a wrapper around a graphics API that's it's specifically designed to be like beginner friendly and accessible. Yeah, PhD, I have to say I'm not. I don't like I don't like using these things in part of a larger expression. It's just my, I mean, I kind of use this pattern sometimes when you're like manually listing out things and like stepping through something. But it's just a personal thing. I don't like fancy expressions involving these. That's just a personal thing. I feel like it's just clearer to do it separately. Okay. Okay, so we're getting each line. So I'm going to say if... let's do string line. Say if line dot starts with hash, then I'm going to continue. No, I'm not going to continue. I'm going to... See, now I'm thinking what you had was actually pretty good. Not ideal. Otherwise, beats is going to be equal to splitting the line on commas. So each line is going to represent a bar. Yeah, you're right. That's okay. Nice. I like it. Yes. Agreed. That's the way to do it. And now I can just do this. Perfect. That's what I wanted to do, but I was looking for a clean way to do it. Okay. Perfect. I feel that piece now. So let's create bar. Oh no. New. Let's also do something like this. Okay, now I can say okay. So the specification for this beat will normally just be a single letter, but I'm going to allow multiple hits to go kind of into that location. So I'm going to say if it's just a 0, that'd be a bit nicer. Let's do a minus sign. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is Yeah, in terms of how well timed it has to be. So I think there are some studies which say that in order for something to feel responsive, you want... Okay, there's certain response times in like milliseconds where things feel responsive, and I think the threshold is something like... If it's like 200, then it at least feels like what's happening is in direct response to like the button you pressed. And then there's some other threshold, it's probably like 50 or something, where people can really clearly perceive the difference between 0 and 50. Then you have 1 frame, which is like 15, 16 milliseconds. And obviously 0 is perfect. But I think that in a rhythm game, it has to be close, it has to be tighter. Because even if 100 milliseconds would feel pretty responsive normally, the fact that you're waiting and anticipating for that exact moment to happen, I feel like that then means you need to be a lot tighter, right? Because, you know, if something happens and then you press a button in response, people's reaction times are a couple hundred milliseconds. But if it's like something they're anticipating with like musical timing, then I feel like people are actually really, really sensitive to that because they like zone into it and anticipate things. So I feel like as low as possible. It says here the default output latency is 100 milliseconds though, so we'll probably be looking at like 100 or something. Maybe we might also need like a compensation factor. Yeah, consistency is the main thing. Yeah, I think maybe we'll need a variable for like a... I think these games even have calibration, right? So maybe a calibration or at least a variable where I can manually tweak like a timing offset in terms of registering the button presses against the beats. So so basically we could have just A, or we could have like AB. Let's actually do a test, put some more in our test here. Actually, let me change the zeros for dashes. Not all of them. Long beats would be nice, yeah. I'm thinking I might just do like something like this, or I was thinking, could you do like lowercase a for a regular thing, and then capital would represent like a start and a stop? I don't know. We'll do holding, I think, as a separate phase if we do that. So let's do something more like this. It's a slightly more complex thing for us to pass. So basically I want to convert these into... I'm just using an integer for the note ID. So I think what I'll do is equal to, or note is equal to C minus A. So this will basically say, if I do a capital A, then it's kind of the difference between these, right? So capital A minus capital A is 0, capital B minus capital A is 1, and so on. So it's kind of converting to converting a number, like starting from capital A. That's kind of what that does. Okay, so now we've pulled that note out, so now we can add dot add new, what do you call it, a hit? Was it a hit? Yes, so it has certain beat index, certain note, and duration for now we'll just say 1. Yeah, if it overlaps, I think probably the cleanest way is just to specify the length, like here, in some form like that maybe. It's going to make the parsing more complicated, but it's going to be cleaner than like having the same thing appear in multiple slots. Okay, so I think this will give us what we hoped for. Let us just maybe throw on the debugger and check that this gives us reasonable output. I'm sure there's something I've got wrong here. My little variable watch up here. Okay. Oh, missing a bracket. Stop. Debug. Oh, okay. I thought it hadn't paused, but actually it's still playing now in my ears, even though it looks like the program has stopped. So I can step through. Oh, it's weird. I'm hearing little clicks of the audio as I'm going through. This may get annoying. Actually, that's horrible. Let me just quickly mute that so you don't have to suffer through it. Okay. So you can see here that it's pulled out just an A, so it will figure out the note is note index 0, and then it's going to add to our bar. So probably if we step through this more and more, we're building stuff up in our bar structure here. Yeah. That makes sense. Beat 0 and beat 4. The first bar, we have an A or a note type 0. That seems good to me. Let's stop this. One thing I did forget to do though is to let's add the bars. Bars not add. Okay, this is also a coding style thing that I'm never sure which way to go with, which is this sort of pattern, right? Which is where I'm creating a bar and then building up a load of data and then adding it to the bars list. To me that seems logical, but another part of me thinks I should just add it up here, and then I'm like populating stuff inside it. Is it weird that I agonize over this? I feel like this is less error prone because as soon as you're creating it, you're adding it to the list where it ultimately needs to go. But in my like logical order of operations, I feel like you add it after you like build it up. I don't know if people have opinions on this or if I just way overthink things. Okay. Okay, so I think that should build up our track. So let's just put another quick breakpoint and make sure that our entire program works okay. Let me continue. Okay, so we should now have track data, which has the BPM, which has the intro length, which has all of these bars. There are 4 of them. They have beats inside them. Hey, Thororbit, thanks so much for joining us today. How's it going? You try to populate it in the loop where you create the things you want for it. So, like I populate the bar in the loop, but where do I add the bar to the list of bars? If that makes sense. That's kind of what I wonder about. Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. This works to me. I mean, I normally do it this way, even though I could add it earlier on. Okay, so we now have the data and it seems somewhat reasonable. So let's think about drawing, like rendering this stuff out, right? So this is going to be like a debug render, although probably it's going to turn into the ultimate rendering for the game if I'm totally honest. So what I think I will do is just do track. Let's call this like debug. Debug draw the track. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm just going to draw this kind of in text form. So almost like this. I'm just going to draw this same thing again, but have it like scroll, or either have it scroll or have a bar that shows the current playback position, so we can check now that some of this stuff is in sync. So we've now specified this stuff. Now let's get some UI going to kind of align with this. So I think what I'll have is a couple of little constants here. Pixels per bar, we'll call it. It's going to be, let's call it 100 for now. Let's call it lane placing. Hey Pagliaccio, thanks so much for dropping in. We are making a Guitar Hero, Drum Hero, Music Hero kind of game of some kind. We've just got our music loaded and we've kind of specified in a sort of our own little pseudo MIDI like format where these beats lie, and now we're working on getting this thing like drawn out so we can check that it's all loaded and time synced to the audio correctly. So I think what I'll do is something like, first of all, let's just draw them out without worrying about scrolling. I'm just going to say for each bar, no, there was no such thing as a bar, so it's a list of okay, so for in bar x equals 0 is less than track data dot bars dot size. Let's go loop over every bar. So then the start expression of this bar is just going to be bar multiplied by bar index, and then I'm just going to okay, this is actually an inner class here. Does it not like this? Okay, seems to be legal at least. I always get messed up with the like inner static class stuff in the context of processing because it's a bit different from how this normally works actually. So now we just go through and draw every hit. So hit X is going to be bar start X plus hit dot beat times, oh, interesting. How long will it take to make coding a simple app? I mean, we tried to do something from scratch to something that's rough but like reasonably complete and playable and usable within each stream, which is like 2.5 hours. Like some stuff takes longer, but I'm hoping to get a very rough thing going, yeah, within 2.5 hours here tonight. So another hour or so. So what we have here is, so we know that bar 0 starts here, and we have a certain spacing. Bar 1 starts here, bar 2 And now we know we have a certain hit, which is, say, on beat 16 of this bar, so that means it's going to sit at a certain place depending on how many beats there are in the bar, right? So I could make that a constant, like beats per bar, but we've also got just the length of this thing, so I can just say beats per bar is equal to... Let's actually pull this out. So that's our current bar. Is equal to the size. So let's do this here. Really, this should be the same for every bar, and technically it could vary. Maybe that would be useful. You know what? That could be really nice, actually, right? If each bar could have 32 or 16 or 32 or 64 beats, then if we need more resolution because there's lots of fast drum stuff going on, then we can have that vary for each bar. Maybe that's actually a really nice way to do things. Yeah, that's possible. Okay. Actually, I did it because I'm lazy, but it feels like it's more flexible as well. Okay, so beat step x is equal to bar divided by, let's call it not per bar, let's call it in bar because it's for this specific bar. So now we know where the left hand side of the bar starts, and now we know the step. So you know the first 0th beat goes here, then the next one is going to be a certain distance along based on a certain spacing according to how many beats there are in this bar. So they should be evenly spaced, which means that we can figure out times okay. Bar start y, I'm just going to kind of put arbitrarily. It's going to be equal to bar start y plus hit dot note, which is like either 0 for 0, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, how many different types of note we have, times by what did we call it? Lane spacing. Okay, now we can just draw a little ellipse or something. Okay, you know what? Let's draw some vertical lines. So a line starting from bar start x and bar start y, going to the same x and plus, I don't know, 4 times, something like that. So we're drawing like pretty much drawing these vertical lines, and then let us draw the beats themselves, maybe as little dots at that position, and just of a particular size, whatever, that kind of somewhat arbitrary. Okay, so I'm hoping now we will see some like visual representation here. Okay, this may be totally wrong, but it's something at least. I'm not seeing our vertical lines, so let's do no fill, draw these in white, and certain stroke weight. Then for these, let's do no stroke, draw them in red. Actually, do this up here for all of these. Right, this is wrong. Oh, you know what? This is wrong. So this doesn't really work. Because we're counting the number of hits when actually we should be looking at the original like number of beats. So let's actually give ourselves a little bar with a certain number of beats. And then the actual beats themselves. Right, and then a little constructor. Because we need to remember, like at a certain point down here we know how many beats there are. But we need to remember that sort of metadata later on. Nope. Ah. Okay, so now this is actually going to be a list of bars like this. And now we're going to add a new bar, which is going to have that's how many beats there are, and the actual let's call this hits now. There are the hits. Okay, so now we're remembering how many actual beats there are. We will have broken all of this code. What we actually want to do is, this is its own special class now. This is actually stored in .num beats. We iterate through the hits. Okay, I think this will give us something a bit more reasonable. Yes, okay. This looks much more sensible. Although it doesn't actually seem to correspond with... Oh, okay, it was here, wasn't it? Okay, cool. Let's see if this lines up. So we have A, that's A. Then we have A and B, and then B, and then A and B, and then B. Okay, cool. This looks to me like we have loaded this incorrectly, right? We have this alternating A and B pattern, and it's A everything. Cool. Okay, let's try and get a little marker going across to show the current position. So, where are we? Which is here. Is equal to. So when we say BPM, that's like that's on a 4 beat per bar thing, right? So is equal to dot BPM 1.4. Is that correct? That's right. So this is essentially bars per minute. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. So now we can say what do you call this? Like the playhead X is going to be playback pos divided by bar length seconds. So this is how many bars through the track we are, multiplied by pixels per bar. And now we just draw a line from this. Doesn't really matter. So bit of alpha. Okay. Now this is not going to be in sync because the BPM is not correct and it doesn't account for the arrow thing. Okay, but it's moving along reasonably well. It's not too crazily far off, so I actually should subtract the intro length, right? Kind of account for that. Which should hopefully mean that we'll see it pop in on the left-hand side just as it kind of comes, just as the first hit of the song kind of starts. Okay, that seems right. Now let's try and measure the BPM of this tune. So if Paul was around, I would just ask. But as it is, I think we'll probably need to just measure, count a certain number of bars out, and then measure. So I've got the version with the intro chopped off already. What I'm doing by that, so I'm just going to go through and count like 8 bars or something, and then I'll just check the time and kind of divide that. So bear with me while we listen to this play through a certain number of bars. Okay, lost count. I'm counting on my fingers here, by the way. So this point here, I think that's like a 16 bar. So we just need to find the exact or approximate start point here. And hopefully we'll see this come to like a round number, which means that Paul has chosen an integer BPM, which would be typical, I guess. So if it comes out very close, then we'll know that we're kind of on the right track. So I'm just gonna, actually I don't need to do this, I just need that exact timestamp of the start point here. So this is always a bit ambiguous, like here, I mean, I don't know, it seems close enough. And this is 33.883 seconds, so it will be able to read any file as long as you provide this data, which is like how long the intro is, what the beats per minute is, and then all of the notes for every bar. So you have to like manually make this happen, but it will be like data driven, if that makes sense. But you'll just have to manually create a file like this for any song that you want it to load. So sorry, I'm having to do maths here. Okay. Okay. So we have, I've always found doing algebra like on stream is like really difficult because to actually think of it and write it down and kind of draw it out at the same time, it gets kind of annoying. So it's 33.883 seconds, which is this many minutes. And this is what, 16 bars. So that's 64 beats in this many minutes. I might be off by a factor of 2, depending on how you count the bars. Yeah, so this is the one of these theme songs from a track that from a game that we're developing called Steam Hounds. Okay, so I got like a 113. Let's see what this looks like. Just copy this whole thing. Probably screwed something up here. If they were off by some factor, then we can sort this out. And I'm just going to add some more bars in so that we have just extends for longer, and we can just visually see whether it seems to stay in sync. Okay. So far, so good. I mean, this seems okay. Let's maybe get this scroll thing going on and make this whole thing longer. So rather than let's make this playhead X always at a certain position, like pixels per bar. And then I'll just offset everything else. And then we'll just calculate an offset here. It's going to be equal to, I kind of wanted that calculation actually. Okay. It's going to be, should we undo and get back that calculation we had? And this can now become the offset, I guess. Up here. And I'll just make this like a negative. So now when we draw this, I can just do plus offset X. Again here. Like this. Oh. Actually, let me do it here. Be a bit more consistent about where I apply the offsets, and it's probably going to go in the wrong direction or something, but okay, I'm going to add a bunch more bars here, and I'm just going to kind of play through this, and we'll see if it drifts, and then I'll just tweak this number to try and kind of tune that. So I'll add a bunch more just so we have more stuff to look at here. Right? It seems pretty good. But if we're off, then it's going to drift out throughout the track. So I'll let this play for a couple of minutes. And we'll see how this goes. So I used to, little known fact about me, I used to DJ like dance, like drum and bass music. So I'm somewhat familiar with like beat tempo matching and stuff like that. But so I'm used to do this a lot, like by ear. The nice thing we're doing is that we're querying the playback position and drawing everything in relation to that, right? It's not like we're updating the visuals and hoping it stays in sync. If the audio hitches, then the visuals will hitch or lag in the same way, right? Which is probably what we want. I mean, this is still good enough, I think. I'll just let you listen to the song. It's pretty good. So I feel like we're ever so slightly behind. I'm sure you can't tell on the stream, and it's pretty minor. But it's scrolling slightly too fast. Very marginally, maybe. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And I'm surprised we got that calculation right first time. Okay, now I'm looking at the screen and you know when you play Guitar Hero and then stop and then your whole vision gets screwed up and starts drifting to one side? That's now happening to me. Okay, I think that's close enough, definitely for the first section of that song. Of that whole song, really. Cool. So we now have UI to match the notes. Okay. Probably one other thing we need to do is actually like, you know, actually going through and putting notes in good positions for this, but it seems like we're almost there. So let's now switch over maybe to making a nicer like rendering of this. So if we do something 3D, pseudo 3D. So let's check Open Game Art to see if there are any like rhythm game asset packs we can use. Rhythm. Put it on audio. Okay, search again without the audio. Not ideal. What even is this? Like, yeah, this. I thought this was like a piano roll or something, but that's not what I wanted. Guitar Hero inspired. Don't make me draw something, please. Basically, we needed some like little icons which can come down these tracks and maybe have different colors. So some cutesy thing like this might be just fine, actually. So Let's check out Kenny. Great source of game assets of all kinds. Just looking for anything we can use that sort of makes sense. A note, audio, game icons. Be any random object, or little targets, that might work. Oh, they're 3D, probably not what we want. Okay, you know what? Unusual. I'm going to take a 5-minute break and refill my drink and stuff. If anyone has ideas for like how we can visually theme this, or is able to pull together any icons or assets that we might be able to throw in, then I would very much appreciate that. Otherwise, I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll continue. Okay, I'm back. Suitably refreshed. Okay, let's find something here we can use. These look kind of... suitable, maybe? Just need some little icon we can position in the world. Ooh, crystal. This could definitely work. Something like this. Anything that can represent the little notes on our timeline. Yeah, that's what I was looking at, and it looked kind of Guitar Hero-y, right? So, enemy UFO. Oh, even better, maybe. I'm going to keep scanning through these, actually. This one, right? Like, this is pretty much... that's pretty much Guitar Hero right there. Okay. UFO purple. Let's just drop it straight in. I think what I'll do is maybe make this open. Yes, so let's drop it down. Oh, that's weird. What's up with this image? That seems corrupted. Pretty weird. Something strange going on with these assets. Well, that looked okay in the preview. Right? That's weird. I've never seen that before. Oh, they're actually 3D models as well. Side views. Dump all this out. So I want to make something as well that I can recolor just for the different... maybe I'll just have 3 different lanes, and then I can do it with arrow keys or something. But in any case... right, that looks fine. If I open it with GIMP, I feel like maybe they're encoded in a weird... yeah, that's so weird. Okay, let's... something weird going on with the alpha channel. But probably the data's there. Yeah, this is very, very strange. I've literally never seen this happen before. If I open them with like paint or something. So that's not going to like the transparent background. What else can I open this with? I'm just wondering, how can I export this to a different format? It's okay, but I kind of want the transparency around it as well. And he's causing it to really, really lag when I open these as well. Yeah, this is pretty odd. No. Okay. Goodbye. Open it again. It was so perfect as well. I've really never had an issue with GIMP opening anything. Ah, there we go. Yeah, it must have got in a really weird state. That was very strange. Okay. Crop. It's also so I want to make sure that like the visual center of it is in the right place. I think it is. And I think what I'll do as well is I will make it grayscale, because then I can more easily color it dynamically inside the game. Data. Let's call it hit marker. Okay, there we go. Now I can clean out some of the other crap from here. Okay, I'll fix that later. Okay, let's load this in. Did play right at the end, actually. Is it that, or is it? I always forget. Okay. Cool. Thanks so much for popping in. Yeah, if you want to follow us, we'll obviously we do these pretty much every week. If you are interested in voting on what we do, if you head over to our Twitter, we normally post a poll a day or two before about what to do. Awesome. Thanks, Frenzy. Very much enjoyed having you here. I feel like this is wrong, in the wrong way. Okay, that's better. So now what I want to do is just change this to be slightly more visually laid out in a slightly more interesting way. And I'm going to do this by... So instead of this side view, I'm going to do something a bit more Guitar Hero-y and kind of have these tracks either coming straight down or maybe even doing like some perspective stuff. So let's have a think about how we do that. It's almost the same, right? It's pretty much just drawing images instead of dots and then just rearranging the camera angle. So to be honest, I may just be able to tweak the translation and rotation to have this same code work. in a sort of pseudo 3D, or in fact actually 3D kind of arrangement. So first let me put this 3D mode on. I feel like it's going to be easier for just the way I conceptualize things if I kind of switch X and Y a little bit here. So I'm going to change this to Y, 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 X. Actually just flipping X and Y. I mean, it's probably not super necessary. I could just rotate this to be something equivalent, but am I off? Okay, that shouldn't be there. Yeah, I mean, I could just rotate and translate this all to be equivalent, but I'm a bit more... This makes more sense to me. I can like visualize this better, so... Also, I feel like X should be before Y because it just is. I don't know. Hit X, hit Y, plus. Okay. Okay. Now we run this, it should be kind of rotated around for us. That's all well and good, but also I think it should all be flipped because it should kind of come towards us. So let us actually do something else. So this can now be the other way around. The beat step should be negative. Probably missed something. Probably off by a whole bunch somewhere. Let's do height minus this. Okay, I've kind of confused myself by by trying to switch all this stuff around at once. Let me... This should actually be at the bottom. And then this is going to start here. Plus that. So these little fiddly changes are always the most annoying to make. Tuck it in and then you miss something. Okay. Okay, we got somewhere there. Let me also do something like Something like this. Let's center it on the screen. Nope, that's not how you do that. You push matrix, then I do translate to height divided by 2. Or in fact, we could move the 0 point slightly down, so it kind of sits in like the mid-bottom, maybe. So this now becomes 0, we can ditch that. This line is at 0 here. Okay, this stuff is now offset in a way it doesn't need to be. Slowly rearranging this to be more Guitar Hero-y. When we push, we must pop. All this push matrix, pop matrix does, if you're not familiar, is it's like a save and restore for this. So if we translate everything, I actually didn't want to translate the UI, so I kind of push matrix to kind of remember how everything was positioned before, draw all this stuff at this new position, and then sort of revert back so it doesn't affect any other drawing code. Okay, looks good. Let's just make this this thing be a lot wider. That goes all the way across the bottom. Okay, getting closer. And now what I probably want to do is have a constant for number of note types, and I'm just going to go with 3 for now. And then I can do something like if note, a bit of validation here. Okay. Now when I figure out where we position these, I'm going to change this to be something different. So what I want to do is, if we've got 3 types of notes, then I want the left-hand one to be over here, and then kind of center it on the middle one, whereas if we had 4, we obviously kind of want them to be centered around that midpoint. So to do this, I need to figure out where to start drawing this one, which kind of means if this is the center point of the screen, figuring out this little offset here, or in this case it would be like this offset here. And we know what we want the spacing to be. It's lane spacing here, which is definitely going to be bigger than that. So change pixels per bar to like bar length. I feel that's a bit more descriptive. And you know what, let's pull these up to the top as well. Since this is no longer debug and this is actually going to become the real code for drawing the track. So the start X is going to be lane spacing pixels multiplied by, what do we call it? Number of note types. So that gives us the entire width across here. So if there are, oh, that's not true actually, it's -1, right? So there are, the spacing is 100, then this is 200 wide. So we should actually do note types -1. And it's actually going to be minus this times 0.5. Because if this is 200, then we want to start this one at like -100. By the way, it's called, so the mistake I made there, where I forgot to include this -1, is often called the fence post problem. It's this analogy that if you've got two fence segments, and that's actually 3 fence posts, and you can often mix up, like, should this count as like 2 because there are 2 things, or 3 because there are like 3 actual posts, and often in different contexts a different one will be relevant. So it's very, very super common to mix these things up, I find. Or people find, to the extent that there's a word for it. Okay, hopefully this should now be centered. Ooh. Oh. I feel like it's something to do with something not being trimmed and some weird stuff happening with new lines, but not 100% sure. Okay, good guess. Okay, so now we're expecting there to be 3 note types. There's actually only 2 in the data, but it would be centered if there were 3, so that seems to be more or less correct right now. So we can now maybe play around with rotating our viewpoint a bit to try and get a bit of 3D perspective at play. So thinking about the axes here, so we have our screen with our lines going down, and we want to kind of tilt it away from us so that it becomes like that, right? That's kind of how Guitar Hero would be. So in fact, the axis on which we would rotate it is this one. You can imagine us like pivoting it around here, which is the x-axis, so it should be a bit of x rotation, I would imagine. Let's just see what this gives us. Does it rotate x? Okay, just need to make this a little bit more. I mean, this is just purely aesthetic. Cool. Okay, not a bad starting point. Let's maybe change how we draw these bar lines. And let's make them a little alpha-y, I guess. And then this one can be the kind of full fat, full bar at the bottom. Okay. One last thing is we're actually drawing the entire track every time right now, which is massively wasteful and unnecessary. So let's just do a little bit of culling so we don't draw stuff that's like hasn't scrolled onto the screen yet or has already scrolled off the back end. So there are many ways we could do this. I think though that a fairly reasonable way to do this is actually, first of all, I'm going to apply this offset like here, rather than doing it all throughout. Okay, hopefully that's the same so far. Cool, and then I think all I'll do is I will just say something like if bar start y is less than minus height, or that y is greater than height, then that's going to continue. I didn't pick these numbers very scientifically. I think this will just more than cover what's on the screen. But we can tweak that. It depends on the perspective, right? The more the extreme the perspective is, the more into the future we can kind of see. Okay, we're a bit overzealous, as you can tell. Interesting, you can see it coming in time. That's pretty cool. But let's just do, I don't know, try and be a little bit more. A bit more strict with it. Nope. Oh, okay. So it should be this way. Wrong way around. I often get Y mixed up because it's kind of flipped. Flip top to bottom compared to how you draw things in maths normally. Cool. That seems a bit more efficient. And we can be even better than this actually. We can say if this is already scrolled, wait, no, if it hasn't scrolled onto the screen yet, so this is a bar which is already scrolled off. And then this one is a bar which is not yet scrolled on. So actually all the other bars after this we also shouldn't draw, so we can bail out immediately. So we don't even loop through stuff which we don't need to. You know, it could be more fancy and like remove bars from the list after, you know, to stop iterating through every bar of the song, every frame, but honestly, it's probably not a practical issue in terms of performance. Okay, that looks pretty nice. I'm gonna now maybe tweak some of the spacing. Let's make the bars longer. make them a little bit closer, just to get this aesthetic spacing going on. You know, I've probably also like doubled the BPM compared to what it actually is. So let me just, because this is actually really fast. So I think it probably makes sense to think of it in halves. In terms of how frequently the little bar spacing markers come through. Yeah, I like that. Now let us, rather than drawing an ellipse, let's actually draw a little image. So I'm also going to do push matrix because I'm going to want to rotate these to sort of face the camera a bit more. So I'm going to need to do some more matrix wizardry. The long short of it is that the correct phrase? Is that if you want to position and rotate something in 3D space, rather than like passing in the position to draw it, you're better off drawing it at 0, 0, but then using translate because it plays more nicely with rotation as well. So for example, I could just draw an image. Hit, what was it called? Hit market image, that's 0, 0. Probably going to be way, way big. Yeah. Let's scale this down by a factor of 2 maybe. Okay, not too bad. Let's then maybe also set up some colors. Begrudgingly using the American spelling there. Let's do, we can't use that color function, can we? So there's a function which does this for us, but we actually can't do it. You need to do it in setup, which means I can't make this final, can I? So don't really want to put it here. Yeah. Yeah, so I can't have this final, which is annoying. So let's go red, green and blue, keep it simple. Okay, I'm not actually doing anything with these. I just need to make sure that I apply a tint, so don't need this anymore. maybe tint, note, colors. I'm going to take the hits note. Should do what we need. Let's try throwing some C notes in here just to check that those render reasonably. Cool. So always like pure blue doesn't look as light as the other colors, so I'm just gonna lighten that up somewhat. Cool. So we have those working okay. Let's first of all let's kind of just space out. So we had that feature actually where we could have different number of beats per bar and it would kind of scale it in accordance. So let's see if that does what we hoped. Yeah, cool. So drop some notes, and now let's try and think about user input. So making them bigger as they get closer, yeah. I mean, they should be. It's just maybe the perspective. I could just make the perspective a bit more extreme. Ooh. So I could maybe play around with just making them larger overall. So I guess if they were this size. Yeah, I mean the perspective should handle that for us. It's just getting it to feel right. Okay, that seems reasonable. I feel like now the spacing needs to be bigger. Space them out a bit more. And now this needs to be extended because we're seeing further ahead of us. Okay, it's okay. Sort of tweaking the culling here. If I put back what we had before. Okay, that seems pretty reasonable to me. These are definitely 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so it's disappearing just because of the culling thing. Let me put some more test stuff in here. Yeah, so I'm trying to just not draw. It's this logic here, right? So stuff which is already off the bottom, I don't draw, and stuff which is yet to come into the top, I also don't draw, but I'm not, as I'm shifting the perspective, I'm seeing further like down the track, so I need to tweak the culling to like align correctly with those. Okay, this seems pretty good, and the spacing is such that I can fit exactly 8 of these kind of back to back in each bar, which is probably about right. Okay. What I should probably do is billboard these to face the camera, but I'm not going to get into that. Okay, let's try and do some input stuff. Let's say this one. Note, I'm going to say if key is equal to left. Yeah, this is in P3D. Yep. Equals 0. Else if key is equal to down, key is equal to 1. Else if key is equal to right, note is equal to 2. Try to increase the Z value to make it higher. Oh, you mean of the like the camera? Yeah, I suppose I could do that. I kind of now just want to move on to actually get some user input going, so we can, we can always tweak the visuals after that. Okay. So what I need to do now, when a key is pressed, I need to figure out if I'm near a note. Okay, yeah, the thing with perspective is this is drawn from a particular angle, and you need to do some stuff like based on the angle of something relative to the camera. You need to kind of tilt the sprite back and forth to kind of preserve that perspective, or it kind of looks flat. It looks like the original, Mario Karts where the track was just a flat thing. We kind of get that effect going on, but I'm okay with that. Now what I need to do is to figure out if I'm on a note, right? Like when I press a button. So I think what I'll do is store a little flag on each hit to say whether it's been triggered or not. And then I can kind of check if there is a note at this approximate location under the cursor right now, which hasn't yet been hit, which corresponds to the button I've pressed. And then given some like tolerance, I can trigger it, I suppose. So let me do something like I want a little threshold for each of these, right? So say 20th of a second we'll call perfect. Say great, we'll call like 0.1 of a second. And then good, let's call it okay. Can be 0.2 of a second either way. Now we can do something like, so figure out we need the playback position. And now what we basically need to do is go through, okay, I could optimize this data structure, but I don't think it's actually going to cause a problem. I'm just going to loop through every hit of every bar. And what I'm doing is figuring out the time at which this hit occurs, and then I'm going to match it up against the key that they pressed with some bad tolerance. Go on. I don't know. Almost convinced me to try it. Okay, I just need this as well. Don't like I'm calculating this twice, but I'm sort of running out of time on the stream and I'm now hacking this together, and I'm fully okay with that. Okay. So bar length seconds is that. So bar start seconds is equal to bar index minus intro length times bar length seconds, beat step seconds is equal to bar length seconds divided by bar dot num beats. Okay. Okay, there's our bar. Pull out the bar. So now I can say float the, well, first of all, if hit dot it's already been triggered, and I'm going to say if hit note is not equal to note, then the note doesn't match. Otherwise, I can figure out hit. The exact time of this hit is going to be equal to the bar start seconds, nope, bar seconds plus hit dot beat times beat step seconds. So basically calculating for each bar, where does it start, and then based on the current, each hit, work out its position within the bar, and therefore its exact time. And now we can finally calculate the time difference, which is the absolute value of hit time seconds minus the current playback position. In fact, what I'll probably do is, actually no, let's just do it this way, and I'm going to say if time diff is less than perfect, mark as triggered. So something like this, right? I believe this should work for us. We call it perfect, great. And the other one was okay. Okay. So I'm hoping this will do something somewhat reasonable. Let's make this less crazy again. Designed? In what sense? Do you mean make this difference, calculate it in a signed way, so the tolerances are different if you're before or after the beat? Is that the idea? Let's see if this works anyway. See where this gets us and how it feels. So I've now got I should have my arrow keys tied to these things. That's not really doing anything, so let us actually throw on the debugger, and let's debug at this point. Oh, this is wrong, isn't it? Key. I always get this wrong with processing. Key equals coded, and then key code is equal to something else. Okay. Key code. Key code. Key code. Yeah, okay, totally. Let's run this in the debugger this time. Continue. It's got some old breakpoints still. Okay, I press the left arrow there, which hopefully lines up with that red thing. So we're going to go through the whole track. Where's our little variable window? Current position, bar length in seconds. We step through each hit and get the hit time in seconds. That's the very first hit of the track. The next one. Okay, I think this is going to work, so I'm just going to turn off the debugger. Perfect, good, bad, good. If you press too early, it's bad also, yeah. So yeah, so it would be like, but we can't tie it to a particular note, right? It's going to be, we should, okay, I should probably tidy this up and refactor this slightly. So if you get to the end and we didn't no note match, then that's bad. Just do something like that. Then that will detect a bad hit, and we should probably not draw hits if hit dot skip drawing them. Yeah, so we do abs, so it should work either way. So I don't think we need separate tolerances, so it should account for before or after. It's just kind of symmetrical. So bad hit, yeah. So that's coming several times for some reason. Why is that? Oh, okay. bounds check? Oh, that thing. You mean we're going through everything and not doing that bound check thing? Yeah, we could bail out like right, so if is greater than plus, oh, this should be, we could do something like we could break here, right? And we could also do something like is less than minus that, then we can continue. Is that what you're talking about? So slight optimization, so we don't do that. I mean, if I wanted to optimize this, I would actually change this data structure fundamentally. Like what I would do is I would have like a queue of these beats, and every time something passed, we would remove it from the queue, and we'd only ever be checking the stuff right at the top of the queue. Like that's how I would actually do this if I guess if I cared about efficiency. I'd also pre-calculate the exact times of every beat as we're loading the thing. I mean, maybe I should have just done that, but yeah. This is somewhat hastily thrown together, I would say. I would not structure it in this way at all if I wanted to do it nicely, I think. Okay. Refactor equals like, oh, never. That's the joy of these streams, right? I mean, I finish the stream, I throw it on GitHub now. That's my due diligence done, pretty much. Okay, I've clearly got this wrong because it's missing stuff. Okay, I think this pretty much works. User input is done. Let's think about how we would at least go through the beginning section of this. You know what? One thing that kind of annoys me is that it starts very quickly. So I think what I may do is just add like another second or so of silence at the start, just so don't have this issue of things not being in sync. So let's add 1 second of silence and export that again. And we won't forget to add a second onto that. And this pattern wasn't actually the worst. We can maybe, you know, there's a whole art probably to come up with the nice like patterns that sort of align and match the music, but are also like fun to play. See, it's quite a repetitive section. This is like a looping theme, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to do this. So this pattern seems kind of reasonable. We do this a few times, then we can maybe just add a couple embellishments into this. This would take ages to actually go through this whole thing. I probably won't do this on stream. Once the system's working, I'll throw a scoreboard up and we'll call it a day. Okay, there's definitely some more high-paced stuff that happens there. Flight of the Bumblebee. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that working actually. Although I'd have to figure out the BPM and import and all of that stuff. This kind of work. Yeah, I played the original or Guitar Hero 1 or 2, I think. I tried Rock Band a little bit, but I never owned that one. Yeah, I need to get that pattern down really. This kind of works. Hang on. Can I play this from like 10 seconds? This will be handy as we're going through this to like fill in different points. Whoa! Okay, not what I meant to do. Is it just seek? What can I do here? Jump to like 10 seconds in. Was it Dragon Force is the one I'm thinking of. Seek, what is that? Okay, so that's too fast. I want to get this little pattern down in a satisfying way. So we definitely need an extra beat, so probably we need more like resolution. So we can do this. But then we need another one, something like that. See how that goes. So the first bit of this little sequence feels quite good. Dun. So that definitely works. Let's start with the same thing again, and then we'll vary based on that. I'm not that musical. Okay, maybe I can give myself some like reference points. It's actually pretty tricky. It'd be nicer if I had like the track laid out in MIDI or something that I could base this on at the same time. I'm sure this is riveting viewing, by the way, watching me trying to sequence my janky homemade MIDI. Okay, so the end definitely just should become nothing. We're gradually cleaning this up, and it will repeat somewhat, so we can copy and paste a bit once we have the little patterns down. That was very close. Okay, I was off by like one beat there, I think. Let's figure this out. It's kind of like trying to listen to a song and then come up with the notes on piano. So I think I'm just missing after that C. I should have one more maybe. I say it's like trying to like listen to something and come up with the piano tune, but it's a super easy mode version of that. Still not quite there. So I think actually something like that. That's pretty close. So it repeats again, so let's just copy that. See how close we get. Because there's a little like flourish to it, right? Almost. You can probably hear me pressing my keyboard, right? Like I'm kind of close. You know what? I think I've got a way to do this. I think this might work. Okay, bear with me here. If I do this, then it will like draw the correct pattern, right? If I press it in time. Okay, now I just swept everything up. I hope that might work. So I feel like I'm off by like one note here. That extra B is maybe not needed. It's actually quite frustrating. Yeah, right. It probably is. I mean, I could literally call up Paul and get the MIDI track timing for this. Oh, that was almost there. That could have been it there, actually. I mean, I don't think you can totally automate it because there's like a subjective element of what counts, which drum beats and which little hits count. And even the different, if you play Guitar Hero, the different difficulty levels have different versions of the same track with more or less complex like approximations with these things. So I feel like it's definitely something that's done manually, but probably with some tooling would help. So that second A is good. Because there's a little doo-doo, which I could just turn into one note. I think that may make things easier as well. Okay, I'm pretty close. I'm actually going to wrap it up for today. We will put it to a vote on Twitter whether we continue with this or not. But we have the basic functionality there, I think. You know, there's something I talked about before, which was actually, rather than specifying this in a text file, is to actually load it from an image so that we would have each pixel representing a beat so we could actually draw it out. And one of the benefits there is that I could take a picture of the waveform and kind of align that up with it, so I'd have a visual reference for where these hits happen. And that would really help as well. So maybe if we continue, we'll look into something like that to kind of improve this workflow. Custom song, yeah, I feel like it's, you can make something happen and it depends on the kind of music. Like these hits are pretty distinct, but there's probably parameters for like frequency ranges and sensitivity, which you need to actually tune for each track. Yeah, and then if you want to like simplify and approximate for gameplay reasons, then that's a whole other thing. So I might just get the MIDI, get the actual note timings from the composer. yeah, but thanks everyone who tuned in. This was fun. We actually got something reasonable up and running here, like the functionality's there. If we come back next time, we could add more scoring and yeah, improve that workflow and stuff like that. But it's been 3 hours. I think we can say we can be pretty pleased with ourselves with what we've achieved here. That's pretty much what we're looking for. Yeah, I mean, just for a little 3-hour thing, I'm pretty reasonably happy with this. Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. I will drop our typical links into the chat here. So Twitter, where you can follow us and vote on polls for the other subjects to do. Our Discord, where you can hang out with us and chat. That's also a great place to suggest coding stream topics, and we get all the VODs and GIFs and stuff drop into there as well. Or if you're interested in our main game project, then Steamhounds is where it's at. That's on Steam. You can follow us, wishlist us over there, get notified when the game comes out. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. This was fun. We may come back to this, as I say, depending on the results of our Twitter poll. So thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.